What about gutters? Do you deal with gutters?
You know,
Roof drainage?
So gutters for me, since I see probably, I'd say 40%, 30% of the roofs I go to don't have gutters. It really is not so much a function of the roof as it is water management, and where the water's going, on the ground.
Right.
So, you know, if I see something obvious where I see, you know, foundation is getting damaged due to lack of gutter installation, I'll say something. We as a company, our company, we don't install roof gutters.
Okay.
But I have a couple of really good installers that I refer to people. So if there's lack of gutters or any interest in that, I'll defer to my gutter guy,
Right.
sheet metal guy.
Ask you a question here, because you know this may pertain to the roof. First time I've seen this, a few months back. You know Bud Hayes, right?
Sure do.
So huge house. I had him come out with me, so I had 2 people on it because it was just a monster.
Yeah.
A monster of a house. So the property was like 6,000 square feet. No, I take it back. What am I talking about? It was 12,000 square feet. It wasn't 6,000. It was 12,000 square feet. And the roof from the ground, it looked like a pitched all the way around, but it was actually parapet with a pitch on it.
Okay.
And so I get up on the roof, and I see the roof drainage. I see the bird cages. I see all the scuppers and all that stuff. And then I finish the roof inspection, and I go down. Now I'm doing the exterior walls and everything. I'm like, where the fuck are the gutters at? Gutters were in the walls. It's the first time I've seen this type of a installation, this application, how they did this. I've seen where a balcony deck will have a drain, and that would go underneath between the living room ceiling, for example, and come out and then go down. But it would typically come out of the wall.
Yeah.
These went all the way down the wall and came out the bottom. They're all PVC.
The downspouts?
Yeah. They were inside the walls of the house. I'm like, that is just not a good idea.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah. That was the first time I ever seen it.
Yeah.
It was interesting. So I had to make a new category in my home inspection report for it. I'm like, oh shit, now I got to make a new one because I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
I said, hey, you know what? You got downspouts that are not visible. I can't tell you if they're leaking or not.
Right. And if they do,
it's all interior damage you're talking about here. And
there
there
pain
was
in the ass to get to.
Yeah. And there was a couple of spots in the house that I noticed that had there were plaster walls. And there was a lot of spalling and deterioration. I'm like, man, I wonder if that could be related to that. So I made sure I looked at every single wall in that place.
Yeah.
That place is a monster.
Yeah, along those lines, what scares me for buyers or homeowners is when I see the indented, or what I would call built-in gutters that kind of come back underneath at the roof edge, or even maybe like a well-type gutter that's between the actual wall and the actual edge of the roof. So those, I mean, a typical gutter that's going to be sitting and attached to the fascia or to the rafter tails, it's just kind of by itself. But if it eventually fails,
it leaks onto the ground.
It leaks onto the ground. But these, you know, that's a time bomb. Eventually, though, that metal, if it's galvanized or even aluminum, eventually it's going to fail.
Yeah.
And usually it's galvanized, and you start seeing, and now, you know, I'm just not a fan of that design. So, typically when replacing roofs, we'll abandon those gutters and put a traditional gutter in.
Right.
Yeah. Roof it all the way to the edge and put a gutter on it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I just wanted to share that with you. See if you came across that yet. Is there anything like late and great that we should know about in the roofing industry right now? Any materials out there that I may soon be coming up on, or anything we didn't discuss?
I think, you know, what's really changed my industry is the influx of roof coatings, which we really haven't talked about.
Oh, let's do that.
So, you know, there's two major types right now. One is elastomeric and one is silicone based roof coatings. This comes into play for typically low slope or flat, roofs that have a rolled roofing material.
I've seen it on shingles.
I've seen it on shingles as well.
Yeah.
And it's wrong in every way, but it doesn't necessarily hurt the shingles,
right? Right.
But yeah, it's more designed for application on a rolled roof, depending on how viable. Let's say I go up on a roof and it's 15, 20 years old, getting near the end of its life expectancy. In many, many cases, that roof can be saved with a coating application. And you can literally, if you stay with it and do it every 10, 15 years, put a coating on it, you can keep it going almost indefinitely. And the coatings, they're very, the technology they have, especially with silicone now, it will waterproof whatever it is put on top of. You could have a pond of water 2 inches deep and you have silicone coating. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing to have a big pond of water on a flat roof, but it will work and protect the rolled roofing and protect against leaks. You have to have all the detail stuff right.
Right.
So the places where the roof is going to want to leak, as we discussed, is where anything's coming through the roof, a chimney, a pipe, a drain area. So that all has to be right.
Correct.
But as conversely, the roof is not going to leak in the middle of the roof where there's nothing.
Right.
So
Right.
let's say you got it's approaching the end of its life expectancy. Application of either elastomeric or in some cases silicone coating at maybe a third of the cost of removal and replacement is a really good option. And we're doing miles of it on our commercial side, and quite a bit of it on the residential side as well.
So when I do see coatings on flat roofs where I typically would expect to see it, I just let the customer know, look, I can't tell you the condition of the roof because it's been coated.
Yep.
Now, the coating could be covering a really damaged roof. So I got to put it out there.
That's right.
I'm not saying this is not going to work, but I got to let them know. There's a coating here, and it's most likely because they didn't want to replace the roof. But now the way you're explaining it puts me a little more at ease, because now you're saying it's a very good material if it's installed correctly and it lasts. Right. And it's very waterproof.
Yeah. There's factors, and you and I kind of know just by experience. You go, it depends on how old is the home. You can kind of get indications of how old is the roof, even if there is a coating on it.
Right.
When a rolled roof gets older, it loses the little granular surfacing. It erodes away, and even with a coating on there, you can tell if that has occurred or not. You got multiple layers of roofs on a house, and they threw a coating on it, and that was the end of that. That's not going to be the same as somebody that's maybe got a 10-year-old roof or a 15-year-old roof that put a coating on it, maybe not necessarily to correct leaks, but because of the energy efficiency of the coating, which is huge. A coated roof versus an uncoated roof on a 90-degree day is about a 60-degree difference.
And you need sunglasses on those
You need
roofs.
Sunglasses with
that reflective.
Yep.
Woo,
yeah,
that's a
it's
bitch.
bright, especially when they're
hot,
new.
When it's hot out, it's horrible.
Yep.
It's not a fun day. I just go and leave, and then put it in my report later.
Yeah, put some sunblock on.
It's like a day at the beach without the water. So that brings me up to water ponding, low points in roofs. It's never a good idea to let a roof material to soak in water either, is it? That's just like the skylight issue. That's why I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Boston, so I'm very experienced with what moisture can do, especially in the winter.
Yep.
So ice, it just sits and sits for days and weeks at a time, depending on the temperature, and whatever it's sitting on is probably going to get a little damage.
Yep.
Or a little worn out a little quicker. So water ponding, I do see that in Cali here a lot. It's really easy to find. You see dirt stains everywhere. As a home inspector, I got to point out, hey, look, you got some evidence of water ponding. But you're talking about tearing the roof off to fix it right and re-put it down, because you got to deal with the plywood and the framing, and then you got to repitch it. So I tell them, look, when the roof eventually wears out, if it hasn't already, they can deal with it then. You know, let them deal with it then. But right now, there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah, you know, there's water ponding, and there's significant lake of water on the roof.
I've seen that.
That is something that I would definitely be very strict about. That's probably, if you have significant ponding water all over the roof, it's really probably a replacement situation, and you're going to want to get in there, remove the roof, and on most cases, the most effective way is going to be to do a tapered insulation on top of what's there to create crickets and valleys and drainage.
Direct the water.
Direct the water. In some cases, you have to add in drains, which is maybe not always convenient or easy to do because it's in the middle of the living room where your low spot is. So you might need a plumber. You might need to add some roof drains, tapered insulation. But I would say 9 times out of 10, when I see ponding water, it's not a good thing, because it will allow for faster deterioration to the rolled roofing, because the UV is magnified by where the water's sitting. And it'll typically, what I say in my reports is it will allow for faster deterioration than the other areas of the roof. That's also in many cases a good scenario for roof coating, especially silicone. Silicone holds up quite well to where water is going to sit. Okay. So you get the benefit of cooling off the roof, you get waterproofing benefits, and you get something that's going to hold up well, or certainly much better than the roof by itself where the water is sitting. The manufacturers of roofing materials consider water ponding to be water that sits more than 48 hours after a rain, which frankly is a bit ambiguous in my opinion, because what if it's cloudy, and cold for 2 days after a rain, versus, boom, it's sunny the next day. You're going to get a faster evaporation process, where the water sits. But their point, and the point is that really in a perfect world, you want all the water to drain to either the roof edge or to a drain, and you don't want it to sit more than 2 days after. The reality is that the flat roofs that we see every day usually have some puddling water, and it might last more than 48 hours. Yeah. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis of how much water, how deep. We can't always tell, John, when we're up on roofs, if it's July and hasn't rained for 6 months, we know water's probably sitting there, but we don't know how long.
Right. Unless we see stains or something obvious.
Exactly.
So probably 2 or 3 years ago, I did a house, and it had a lower flat roof and an upper flat roof. So the whole building was just low slope flat roof. Mm-hmm. I get up on the second area, and it's probably 30 by 30, and half of it had 3 inches of water sitting on it, and it wasn't raining. So it was a nice day.
Oh my gosh.
That shit's just been sitting there. So I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I'm trying to look for the drainage. So I have to go back down my ladder, because I couldn't get right up to it, the edges. I had to figure out what the downspouts were, and I just sucked it up and got wet. I had to try to see if I could clear it off for him, It was just the gutters are full, just full. Oh, it was
the gutters?
Yeah, it was a scupper situation, and it was just completely filled with debris. There was a tree kind of maybe 10 feet up overhanging the roof, and it was pretty obvious what the cause was. So I just got in there and cleaned it out, and slowly it just started draining. And then I noticed the gutters were falling apart, so it was leaking all over the house. I'm like, oh, Jesus. Just
did your good deed for the day.
I did my good deed for the day. But just I want to bring it up to homeowners with flat roofs, and you have trees next to your houses. You have got to get up there or send someone up there and clear those roofs off. Yep. This is where these problems come from. Why is my roof failed? It's only 6 years old. Well, it rained last time, and you never cleaned your gutters, and now you just got
I'd say
constant water on your roof.
When it rains, and we had really heavy rain early or late in the year, last year, if you remember.
Yeah. Just like last
and then
week,
it just kind of
rained heavy.
It rained heavy last week, but we had those rains for 2 weeks, and then it was just never rained again for like a while. Everybody's like, "Oh, the water problem solved," or whatever. But anyway, and it's every year the first heavy rains, and this year was one of the heaviest. All of our calls, out of all the calls we get, which can be hundreds a day, for either emergency repairs, warranty calls, whatever, it's almost always flat roofs. And it's almost, I would say our guys go out, or I go out and clear out a drain, and that's probably a third of them. Your roof, if you have a flat roof and you have parapet walls, it's not a bathtub. You can't just count on that roof to hold 6 inches of water. Exactly what you said.
I'm going to use that line in my next customer. It's not a bathtub.
It's not a bathtub. It's not a good bathtub.
It's a bird bath. Is what it is.
Yes. So clearing out the drains, keeping it clean, making sure you've got good scupper drains, ideally with overflow. So you want to have if you've got a wall, you've got a scupper drain, you want to have a secondary drain if that drain gets clogged. And it's just, if everybody did that and everybody kept their roofs clean, we'd be getting a lot less phone calls after rains.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to work so hard. I don't think I have anything else at the moment here. I think we covered quite a bit. Hang on. Metal roofs. Is that something you guys do?
We don't install metal roofs. I certainly inspect them.
Okay.
There's different types of metal roofs. Did you have one in mind you were thinking when you brought that up? Do you mean like the stone-coated metal, like that kind of looks like tile?
I didn't think of that. I'm pretty familiar with that. But yeah, go ahead and touch on that.
Well, there's stone-coated metal. They were made by, manufactured by Calpac, I believe.
There's also a plastic version.
Yeah.
I've seen that too.
Yeah.
The metal. And
there's a lot of plastic roofs now.
Yeah. Stone-coated plastic.
Stone-coated plastic. Oh, that I don't know if I've seen.
I've seen that.
Stone-coated plastic.
I'm like, what the hell? Is this plastic or is
Do
this...
you walk on it?
No.
Yeah.
I don't walk on it.
No.
Just like I wouldn't walk on the stone-coated metal.
Yeah,
They
they
just
dent.
They dent.
It's like an old school.
But I have seen it made out of plastic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Wow.
That's new to me. But yeah, the stone-coated metal, you want to really be really careful about walking on it because it'll crinkle in the hollow void spot. And a lot of the times they're not as big. They're not being installed as much as they used to be. But in a lot of cases, they installed those over wood shake or wood shingle roofs because they were in the shape and could fit right over the old wood shakes. So now you're covering over an old, I'm not a big fan, to say the least, of the stone-coated metal roofs. They can work, and they're sure very high fire rating, Class A fire rating, and all that. But
very lightweight.
Very lightweight. They're just difficult to walk on. I'm not, cosmetically, I don't love the looks of them. But also, what you might have been thinking of is standing seam metal roofs, which is more of an architectural look, and frankly, a much better version of a metal.
Yeah, that's what I
option.
meant by when I said metal. I mean the real streamlined.
Yep.
It's got the ribs in it. Yeah. So.
It's the bomb. I mean, if you do it right, it's a 50-year minimum roof.
Nowadays, I like what they're doing. They'll do the top roof, most likely a nice composition.
Yeah.
And they'll do the first floor, a porch roof, metal.
And it looks great. It's a nice little.
It's a nice touch.
Yeah.
And
it works quite well.
Yeah. Aesthetically, it looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen one that looked like it was installed bad. So it seems like anyone installing those, they just know what they're doing.
Yep. It's really, of all the standing seam metal roofs I've looked at, I've had hardly anything to call out in the way of corrections.
Yeah.
If we have a minute. So, and I see this on standing seam and on other types of roofs, vaulted ceilings and high ceilings is really common now with new construction.
Oh, yeah.
And when they're installing those metal roofs or really any kind of roof with those vaulted ceilings, what I see sometimes is condensation issues. You ever run into that?
No.
Where you'll see, so if you're building a new home or you're changing out your ceilings to vaulted ceilings, what they want to do is stuff that whole cavity with insulation.
They're not venting it.
And they're not venting it. And it's difficult to vent it because you've got rafters running, every whatever, 24 inches.
I think the only way to do that right would be with baffles that allow air. Well, first of all, you need a soffit vent.
Soffit vent.
Yeah, soffit
or
vent.
You're never going to vent it.
And then you run the little styrofoam baffles that will allow probably this much air to be able to rise up.
Yeah.
But then you're going to need another termination point up at the top.
Yep.
To do it right.
Yep.
That's the only thing that makes sense.
And they don't do that. And so 2 or 3 years later it'll happen more in a kitchen area or in a bath, especially a bathroom, maybe on a second story. And you all of a sudden see moisture stains or even mold at the ridge, at the peak of the ceiling. My roof is leaking. No, your roof's not leaking. That's not where a roof's going to leak. That's condensation.
Yeah. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
No.
It happens a lot. They over insulate because they're required to, what's the requirement for insulation?
As thick as you can go.
R30 or,
Yeah.
And so there's no attic. And venting is just maybe we'll vent, it's just a kind of a secondary thought. And I've had it where we come in and really the only thing that I've really had work on that is installing a ridge vent, because that'll at least allow the highest point to get some ventilation. So something to think about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's interesting stuff. I think that's all I got.
Okay.
You got anything else?
No, I think we're good. I really enjoyed it, John.
Yeah, thanks for coming. That was a good conversation.
My pleasure.
My roofing experience helped.
Yes.
Because I can, because that's why I always have these extra questions in my head when I'm on a roof. I'm like, what would I have done?
Yeah, and I learned, stuff from guys like you. That skylight thing, lifting up the skylights.
Yeah, I always tell people, even when, if there's a speaker at one of the CREIA meetings that I might have seen a couple times, I'll still go if I can make it, because he may say something different this time, and I'll take this one little morsel from it. And it'll light bulb.
That's what it's all about.
Light bulb, and you get a little more education. So, I mean, the amount of knowledge in those CREIA meetings with all of us inspectors combined, oh my God, it's crazy.
Yes, huge.
But nobody really taps into that in there. And I always try to push those guys, why don't you guys, you don't need a speaker every time. You know how much knowledge is in this room?
Just shooting the crap with
shooting the shit like we're doing right now. It's just like, what are you going to do? So, so before I end, I just wanted to point out to homeowners, if you're buying a house, don't panic, like the shirt says. Buying a home, don't panic. If you're a home inspector inspecting a house, don't panic. We got you covered here. So if you own a house or you're buying a house, you got to maintain your roof and your gutters. You got to take a look once in a while. If not you, I don't recommend anybody get on a ladder if you're not comfortable with it, because it's dangerous. So getting on a roof, that's something we didn't cover, is ladders. Ladders are dangerous. Let's just call it that. Be very careful with your ladders, guys. And just be careful what you're doing on ladders. And as far as inspectors go, I hope you got something from this. I hope they all got something from this. I think we talked about a lot of good little issues here to call out for things like that. And man. So thanks.
Thank you, John.
I
enjoyed it.
Thanks for coming on.
My first podcast.
Yeah, it was funny when I text you. I want to tell everybody how that happened. I was like, you know what? I need to get Chris on here, because I haven't had a roofer on here yet, and there's a lot to talk about with Bruce. And I had texted you, and you're like, no way, dude. I was just watching your YouTube video on your last podcast. I'm like, oh, that was great. That was good timing.
I was even thinking, like, why doesn't he ask me to be on? And literally, 3 days later, you called me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So here we are.
Yeah. So anybody out there that I know and I haven't called you yet, don't think you can't call me, because I'm always looking for good speakers to come on, a good guest who just want to come on and have some fun, and just talk. There's a lot of people out there that do not know what we know. So trying to educate everybody as much as we can, and just make the home buying process a little less stressful. But yeah.
For sure.
Thanks again, Chris.
Thank you, John.
Signing off. Thanks for listening. Home Inspection Authority podcast. This is episode 23 with Chris Keil.
Thanks, John.
I almost said Keil again.
Yeah.
Because I've been calling you that for a
That's
while.
all right.
But anyway, thanks again, man.
All right. Thank you, John.
All right.